So if you need something where a plaster cast needs to be made, unless you have that specialty to do that, I would certainly defer that to someone that knows what they're doing. If we need to do that, it's trained in food preservation in those circumstances. Big one right here, don't smoke or leave anything unrelated to the scene of the crime. To make sure that we don't complicate the handling of the evidence. Again, if you're in a crime scene, a potential crime scene, you know, you want to make sure that everything that you have is on your person, nothing falls on the ground, you're not further contaminating that scene or doing anything that could bring about any kind of questions of integrity of yourself as a searcher or integrity of that evidence that's on the ground that may be needed. If we locate someone that is deceased, and I think we touched on this later on in a different section, there's certain things that we need not to do there either. You do not want to move anything from the area or touch anything. You want to stay away. Same thing we did on this slide, right? Or wherever we talk about cordoning it off. You want to make sure that you preserve that scene, log who's coming in, log who's coming out, and just, you know, don't approach or touch anything. There was an instance where we found a gentleman down on the river. And we expected to find someone down there, but we weren't exactly sure if this was our individual we were looking for, because whenever we found him, he had fallen down into the river whenever the river was up a little bit, and as the water level dropped, you know, he was floating. I guess he was floating face down. But as the water level dropped, all the like debris and soot and things of that nature kind of settled over top of him. So from his neck up, his head from his neck up was completely buried in the ground. So we had no way of positively identifying. We just knew there was a white male. But we were actually asked to maybe get in there and get his wallet out of him and verify off his driver's license, and we told them we weren't going to touch that, so they sent someone from the coroner's office down there to go check.
And I believe, wasn't that the law enforcement that asked you? I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, somebody asked us to pull his wallet.
But that's one of those, be cool with saying no.
Yeah.
Because where it was hard to get to, and the people on scene did not want to have to go down there.
Yeah.
So they were telling us to do stuff, we were just like,
Yeah, we're not touching that one. But they wanted us to positively identify that person. It turned out that it was the guy we were looking for, but yeah, they wanted us to go pull his wallet out of him, and we weren't going to touch that. So Kentucky law requires our call to the law enforcement agency and the coroner of the county to report to the scene, and then everybody stays there until you're dismissed by the coroner or law enforcement. You know, they may tell you to hang out there to help extract, but you stay on scene until you're dismissed. And sometimes that can take a while. Whenever we were in Union County looking for somebody, they had just crossed over the boundary from Union County to Henderson County, so we had called the wrong corner first because we thought we were still in Union County. So we had to wait for the Henderson County going. It was the hottest day on earth, and sitting out there in the field for like forever, waiting for another corner to show up. Downed aircraft is found. Got a list of stuff we got to do here. This would be a big deal if we ever came across that. Lots of different agencies get involved. Lots of excitement around that. I remember whenever I looked for the missing aircraft on the first day, and it was the second day whenever they found it. That was one where I think people got threatened for their phones to be taken away and confiscated if they were taking pictures of the downed aircraft. So that's the only instance I know of where law enforcement has threatened to do that. But you have a lot of people get involved on that end, and it's not necessarily something you guys need to worry about, but just be aware that your actions as a searcher will be called into question if there's anything that seems suspicious, or if there's ever any kind of litigation that comes out of it. Potentially, your actions may come to scope there.
You may be called as a witness to
Could
see
potentially.
what you found and how they were.
Could potentially. A lot of different people involved there. Bus, same thing. Law law enforcement and the Transportation Safety Board Bureau are called, it must be notified. Same thing there, but again, that'd be a high profile thing, and that's more on your forensic at command to make sure those things are getting done. But if those are the people you would expect to come see on site. Wrecked vehicle, while it's a law enforcement issue, they got to be notified on that one. It says wrecked vehicle or other clue, so I'm not sure what they necessarily mean by other clue there, but if you're out and you find an actual physical clue on not related to a wrecked vehicle or anything like that, I mean that's again up to your command's decision on who needs to be notified about that clue. But for a vehicle, for certain, these guys do not touch or remove the clue unless you're directed to do so. Even then, I wouldn't touch it. So use your own discretion on that. On a training mission, I may touch it just because I don't want to have to go back out there later on and pick it up. But if it's a live search, no thanks. You may find some things out there in the woods you really don't want to find, and you're not supposed to. They're meant to find. Marijuana grows, meth labs. They may or may not be booby trapped for one uncensored reason or another. But there are things out there that are not supposed to be out there, and there are people that definitely do not want you to find those. So for those, you want to make sure that you are using the utmost discretion about what you find in terms of radio traffic. You want to make sure that you're not like making a big scene or anything like that, so where it may draw attention to yourself while you're out there exposed. Oh, sorry. And you want to just back out slowly, safely, make sure that everybody is good, mark the area, and then while the incident command and law enforcement will kind of take that one from there for you. So indicators of this type of activity, which was marijuana, meth, and then booby traps. You may find empty milk jugs. Another thing too here recently is or I guess not recently anymore, but the more shake and bake variety of the Instant Pot version of meth, where it may be like a Mountain Dew bottle. For some reason they like the green Mountain Dew bottles for some reason, but it may be some kind of a empty bottle of some sort of fertilizer bags, Coleman propane cylinders, empty gas jugs, some pseudo or some kind of other drug packaging. Strong odor of ammonia is apparent. This one right here, that's always an interesting one whenever I see it, but apparently it's a thing.
Thanks, it's been nice knowing you.
Yeah, I know, right?
This is a good training. Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
Say snakes, I know.
There could be a number of different booby trap variety things out there, and unfortunately for me, I've never come across anything like that yet. But it's always something in the back of your mind whenever you're walking around in certain areas. You're like, what am I going to find while I'm out here? Any subjects which may be drug related that are not normally seen or normally part of the environment. You're looking for anything that's out of place. You want to make sure you have a plan on that and back out. Here you are right here. If you ever find that kind of evidence, leave the area immediately, notify your incident command. Whenever you return, you want to make sure that if you don't necessarily want to communicate that too widely over radio, just because, again, to Jeff's point, whenever he was here, not sure who exactly is listening in on that. So be super discreet about what you're doing. You don't know who may know what's there and who may be listening. Don't use the radio. If you're going to do anything, give them a call. If you can't give them a call, get to an area where you can call and do it that way. And then you'll explain in person whenever you return. So that's never had to do that, but that's a thing. Man, I thought you were jumping into more search tactics. Sign cutting is a strategy. It's a strategy for finding clues or sign, and it's based on the theory that what you're doing is you're trying to intersect a path of a subject at an angle to where you can easily detect signs. So I'll show you as kind of a basic example here what I'm talking about. So we have our clue, or sorry, here we have, this is our line of travel. That sucked. There we go, it's better. So this is our line of travel for our victim here. So sign cutting would be where our searcher is going on a grid pattern here, and he has an opportunity to cross the path of sign here. This is where he's cut the sign here, comes over, we have another opportunity there to cut the path of the sign right there. So that's the idea, is you're looking for clues as you're walking, you're scanning side to side through your grid, and you're seeing where you can pick up signs as you're going along. There's other tactics, other ways you can do it. If you have if this is your search area, let me erase here. So, this is your search area. Everybody can see that one, right? That's way better, isn't it? So we have a creek running up through here, okay? So another way you sign cut is you start a tracking team here, you send them up the creek, and they're walking that creek, and what they're looking for areas where this would be a high probability area for a man tractor to find sign. So they would walk that creek until they found where that person crossed that creek. That's a tactic for sign. That's also sign cutting as well. And the tracking teams, this is where they specialize, and there are dozens of different techniques for sign cutting. That's a good one right there. Then another one is a spiral method. So your searcher, you start here on here, that's a terrible example. Let's do this right here. Let's start with our last known point, our initial planning points here. And we have, maybe a gravel parking lot or something like that where there's a real faint sign here. And we finally get out here where there's an area where we can pick up sign a little bit better, where you can pick up tracks a little better. You'll send your tracker into your last known point right here. And what they'll do is they'll start doing a spiral method. And they'll spiral, and that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger until they intersect that track. That's another way to sign cut as well. So there's a few different ways to do it, but it's all leading back to the same idea that we're trying to intersect a path of travel that our subject has left. They can give us a direction of travel and start reducing that search area for us. Dozens of different ways you can do it. When a clue is found, it's usually wise to make a circle around a clue and to determine if a direction of travel can be determined. Again, on this, be mindful of preserving that clue, so you don't want to necessarily approach that clue, but that's where this would kind of step in right here, right? That's where we want to preserve that clue, and then we're trying to find that direction of travel on it. So that's where that sign cutting comes in. So let's talk about the importance of not finding a clue, which we said earlier, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If no clues are found and the search area has been thoroughly searched, may indicate they've never been in the area, which is something that you want to make sure the search manager is aware of, and it helps them determine where we need to send resources next. Evaluating your effectiveness. This is where you put your practice in, and this is something that Denise started talking about, and Joe picked up on, or added more to it whenever it comes to practicing. You take a search area, you put a number of clues out there for you to define, or for your team to find, and make sure that you do it in a variety of terrain, so that way you can really gauge your effectiveness. But you just throw your teams out there, they run their search patterns, and then they come back with how many clues they found out there. So that's a way to determine your effectiveness as a searcher. And then one of the most important questions when they return is, what's your probability of detection? We talked about that earlier. Joe said, if you have your search area, if you threw 10 cards or had 10 clues out there, how many would you find based off of your search patterns, your overlapping vision of your teammates, and the terrain, vegetation? That's where that all factors into your probability of detection. We got that star up there, right? The inability to locate clues in an area or relatively low probability of detection maybe we need to search that again, or we need to expand our search area. So, depends on how thorough your team is, or what kind of a good quality team you have out there is, and if they feel like they really beat that search area into the ground and couldn't find anything, then I don't know. Maybe that means that we need to start looking somewhere else. Maybe they weren't there. If it's a relatively inexperienced team, or it's really rough terrain, or for whatever reason they weren't able to get a good solid grid out of it, or they weren't super effective in their search, then maybe we need to put another team back in there again and run that one again.
One thing is just keep remembering, you gotta be honest with yourself
Yeah.
about probability of detection. And sometimes you may even try to be honest and just not aware. I would typically consider myself an observant person. But like I said, that very first search that I met these guys on, I walked like 30 foot from the girl. Me and another couple of guys who would normally probably consider themselves pretty observant, and we were actually looking for the girl. But she had buried down in some brush, and we would have thought, hey, we looked in this corner, she's not here.
So constant practice on that. This is something that we work on quite a bit on the tracking side. I'm opening it up a little bit more to the full team side in terms of helping, work on that probability of detection, more ground-based skills. But getting that practice in, looking for that kind of stuff it's something you got to practice pretty regularly.
All the time. Every day.
All the time. Terrain, and actually, if you really want to get like goofy with it, and it's something that drives my wife crazy whenever we're out anywhere, is whenever you start looking at, you're walking down the sidewalk or whatever, you're walking down the parking lot and you find like a little anthill or maybe just a little spot of dirt or something kind of growing up. You're looking at it, you're stopping and looking at it, seeing if anybody stepped on it. Where people have cut corners at like walkways in the park or stuff like that, you stop and you're looking at tracks there, trying to see how many people cut the corner there, and you find little opportunities like that. You don't have to dedicate like a whole 2-hour session on a weekend doing it. I mean, it's something you can do in everyday life. I mean, just looking at right here, I could see there's a few tracks here, but how many scrapes on the floors from the chairs. I mean, this is something where you can just practice it anywhere. You just gotta know what you're looking for.
Once
Stuff
that
like that.
book gets studied, you see things that's always been there, but you've never seen them before, and they've
Yeah.
always been there.
There's some really easy ways to practice this. Like, of the four of you, if all of you will look at that front left door real quick. Everybody keep looking at that door. Don't look back this way. Without looking back this way, how many windows are on this outside side of the room? Throw it out there. It's okay if you're wrong. And just think about it, because you guys have been in this room for a while. You've looked all over. You've walked back and forth. And that's the sort of thing. Does anybody want to throw a guess?
6.
Anybody else? 3? Good. Okay, you can get the guesses in your head. Now look. Isn't that crazy? You could be in a room with something that takes up the entire wall and not soak it in. And that's where probability of detection can come in. Because like if you'd have come in and searched this room and then moved on, you probably wouldn't have looked much more than this, and I could ask you the same question, you wouldn't have known there's 4 windows, right?
Right.
So it's getting that everyday stuff.
Yeah.
You can start small like that.
My wife loves it whenever I make her stop so that way I can take a picture of it. She loves that. All right, terrain evaluation. So terrain evaluation may indicate where and how the subject may travel. We're going to get into this more when we get into the land nap piece of it. But this one right here, the forks in the road, these decision points like that. And Joe mentioned something about this earlier. Whenever you're looking at your map, and this is something that we'll touch on a little bit today, but you can do it more in other classes. You want to start looking at that map. You want to look at those areas where something may have gone wrong for our subject. And that's where the terrain analysis and evaluation comes in. You start looking at those forks in the road or trail junctions and stuff like that, and start to think, okay, if someone was confused, disoriented, maybe they're dyslexic, maybe they've never hiked this area before, or something of that nature. Where could this have gone wrong for them? So that's where that comes in. What sights, sounds they have seen, from their point last seen, last known point, that may have attracted the subject. You know, you wanna put yourself in that subject's shoes. You know, if they went missing at nighttime, what would have been, what would they have seen at night if they went missing at nighttime? What may have could have attracted them at that point, or what may have been a barrier for them? Looking at your map there, are they going to really realistically swim across the river, or are they gonna, you know, jump off the cliff or whatever? You know, that map will tell you a lot of things there, that whenever you're looking at that circle again, you know, you can eliminate large chunks of your area. You know, we're gonna eliminate large chunks of area based off of what that map's doing for us. Already saw that one. What are the natural routes may offer less resistance to travel, stuff of that nature. There are areas where the subject is not cut off by natural man-made barriers. So, and these are the things that you're collecting out there in the field while you're working your search area, and it's all information whenever you get back to command to debrief. It's important information to share with them, so that way they can take a look at their map and figure out where they need to start sending resources. Any questions on this, guys? Alright. I think we have 2 short ones, and then 2 long ones, and then we're done.
I bet some of you guys are already Johnson for some coffee. You go home.
Let me find that guy.
Maybe, maybe not.
This is the only marker that works, so if you need this marker,
Talk it over if we need to do something.
there's
So,
that.
yeah,
Or something.
but just think how short tomorrow will be.
They got a whole thing.
This is, tonight's gonna
Think
be,
like that.
so tonight, we're working through the tactical stuff tonight, which is a little bit longer, but like Denise said, tomorrow, it's gonna be a lot shorter, but this is, there's certain things we gotta get through tonight, so that way whenever we get there in the field tomorrow, it makes sense for you guys, it clicks for you, and you guys will have an excellent search. So these are the things we gotta get through, but at least you're not searching at night, so.
Hey, Brian, if we end up deciding that this is getting real long, I would not, I'm totally good with us going as late as you want to. I'm also good with doing mine like Saturday evening as well. But I feel like what Joe's gonna do is gonna help them tomorrow a great deal as well.
Well, it will, and we can, let's see what we can get through in the next 30, and we'll see what time it is. 'Cause
Okay.
it's way past my bedtime.
Yeah.
You found the person. Alive, deceased, whatever, you found them.
Yay.
That's the goal. Even, I'm a firm believer that even if you find them deceased, it's still success because it's closure for the family. You know, it's not the ending you would have liked, but it's a good ending in the fact that you found them. Okay, first thing you're gonna do is call it in. Hey, I found the person. No. Okay, when we find on our team, if they're alive, it's holiday. That's our code word, holiday. Anyway, so you notify. And then we're gonna go by last. Locate, you have to tell them where you are. That's where the GPS comes into effect. You have to be able to read it. You have to be able to let them know where you are. Assess the condition of the person you found. Administer first aid if you need to. Here again, don't go above what you know how to do, okay? Don't try to help them because you say, well, I know how to do this, but actually they need this. So you gotta be real careful. Stabilize them. If they're on a cliff edge or whatever, you can hold their head in a position. You know, you can splint something for them, but you're not a doctor. Don't try and put the bone back in, okay? Just don't do it. But you can stabilize them so they don't move around too much. Secure them for extrication, and then transport. You might transport, you might not transport. A lot of it just depends on what your IC tells you. The incident command is gonna decide how they wanna get the person out of there. That's not for you to decide. They'll tell you whether you're going to walk out with them, you're going to just package them up the best you can with what you have, and then you're just gonna stay right there with them, they'll tell you. They're gonna call in the resources. It might be air, they might call in a helicopter, probably not around here, the ground, or the boat, probably not around here. Although, we did call in a boat, they did
So you
end up
voted
calling in
somebody
the
out
boat
for
for that gentleman on the water. Who's responsible for the expenses? Don't make it you. That's not your job, that's the incident commander's job, okay? He's the one who can ask the boat, because if the firemen bring in the boat, somebody's gotta pay for that. Put it on him or her. What resources available? Well, we might need a helicopter, but there's not a helicopter available. So you have to make do with what you have. We might need a four-wheeler to get somebody out. We don't have a four-wheeler. But the incident commander might find somebody, but somebody's gonna have to pay that person. So, consider the amount of time it's gonna take to get the resources to extricate. If it's gonna take 4 hours to get a helicopter up here, there's a better way to do it, obviously. Search teams finding the lost subject, stay with the person. You know, obviously, somebody's gonna feel better if you say, I'm gonna stay right here with you until somebody comes. I can't fix you, but I can stay with you. If the subject is found deceased, again, you're gonna notify the person. We use the word dentures if they've been found deceased. Again, your location. Incident command will notify. The LE, law enforcement comes in, coroner comes in, you know. You don't get to say someone's dead. You know they're dead, but you can't officially call it. And then when somebody calls dentures, everybody stops. Or even holiday, everybody just stops until incident command tells the other groups what to do. And stay off the radio. There's no reason to be on the radio. If you wanna tell them congratulations, tell them later. Don't tell them right now. Stay off the radio. Stay there, not right at the deceased person, but stay back, okay? Because you don't know if it's criminal or not. So try to back up the same way you came in, your same footsteps, so there's not a bunch of footsteps around there. Don't touch or disturb anything, not yours. Respect and professionalism. Secure the scene, don't let anybody else in there. Oh, I wanna see. Really? Come on, jeez. I don't understand people like that, so. Law enforcement or the coroner are the only two people that can come in. If you can't reach the incident command, 2 people stay. Like maybe you're just not in a good spot, your radio's not gonna reach. 2 people stay, 2 people would go, or however many other people there are, go maybe to a different area where you did contact them, so you know you have good radio communication there, and just relay it back to them. Stay, like I said, stay there until you're relieved. And that's that. That last one's not even worth my time reading. There you go. Done. It's a quick one. Done. Oh, Katie's next. Go, Katie. Go, Katie. Tomorrow is mod pizza. Does anybody have any kind of allergies or anything? You can't eat anything on pizza.
No, we don't want anchovies or nothing.
I'm gonna make sure they put it on one pizza and that's gonna be yours. But now I'm out, so ladies, see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for be careful going home.
That way we're not trying to shuttle them back and forth between multiple locations. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Get it from one location. So, what do you think about that?
All right,
See you tomorrow.
so you responded, or you got called out, you responded, found the subject. now we're back at incident command for a debrief, okay? So you have your initial, briefing, and now we have a debriefing. This is also very important. So, proper information conveyed in the debriefing is absolutely essential for an effective search. Basically, this is the learning opportunity of what went right, what went wrong. So that better helps you know for future searches as well,
Yes. we can.
what maybe you need to change.
Yes, we can do that. Absolutely. I was just trying to think what's.
Use any mean, also, that's very, important too, because we have subjects who, we might get called out on multiple times. So if we found him at the same gas station 4 times, that might be important to, before we start going and looking everywhere, go look at that gas station first and see if they're there. 'Cause that's happened, we had a teenage kid that's autistic, and, he was in Hancock County. They moved to Davis County, and, but his big thing was his parents would give him money to go get snacks at a gas station, so that's where, they always usually found him. So, use any means to convey what you may wanna say about the area searched. Use those maps. We actually have a, interactive map that we use that he mentioned, called Star Coco. We all turn that on when a search happens. And we'll be able to use it tomorrow too, they'll show you.
Let's do it.
And what happens, when we get back, it can basically, look back and show a story of where we've been and, show where we've been, so it's pretty neat. Any notes you might have taken, sketches, anything like that, anything that you, collected, found,
Let's do this.
felt was important in any way, shape, or form along the search, that's what you need to, relay once you get back to command, so.
Exercise.
Searchers should report to a pre-designated individual in incident command for debriefing. Pretty much how we do it here, we all report back to command, they'll tell all teams that report back to command, and we'll have a debriefing together. As I've said before, the one right after, initially right after a search, it can be in depth, but pretty much at that point, a lot of times people are tired, they wanna go home, different things, and so we will do our initial briefing, but then dive more into it later on. Usually what they call that is an after action, and so, it just kinda gives everybody a break, kinda gives you some time to refocus, and then, you can kinda knock out or really discuss and dive into what went right and what went wrong.
You're doing it tonight.
Debriefing should include an explicit description of area covered and activities carried out. This is where we started, this is where we went, this is what we found, didn't find, et cetera. Also, something very important is, things you may have encountered, safety-wise. Probability of detection, all that math again. Not usually something that we do a lot of the debriefing piece of it, but, that's also important, what clues were found. So again, moving down to 3, location of any clues found, regardless of how insignificant they may seem. You find a wrapper on the ground, it might be from 2 years ago, but, it's at least important because it might be part of that subject. Use map sketches to define where found. Again, we always call back with a GPS location. You all will get to use those hands-on and see them. That always helps because normally, ideally, again, if we have a map guy that's in our command vehicle or our command structure at that point, they're able to, or even that interactive mapping app that we use, we can pinpoint those and drop them on a map with a pin, and you can see them in real time, like where all of those are. It's pretty neat. Gaps in any area search or any other problems with the search at all, hazards, or maybe the maps we have aren't totally updated to the sense of a wall was built or a fence was built, we couldn't cross that fence, a privacy fence, let's say. Cause that will sometimes, take away a part of an area search that they want us to search rather than 100 square feet, it might only be 80 square feet, just as an example. But that makes a difference though, if the subject was found or not found. And then any special difficulties encountered, communications right there is the first one. Doesn't matter, it seems like communications is always the thing that, we have issues with. And it's not anybody's fault, sometimes it's operator error, but sometimes it's just the antenna doesn't reach, or, the GPS you might have to reset it to where, it recalibrates itself, because we've had people who had, me being one of them, I've called back coordinates before and they've been totally just way off, but my GPS said that's where I was. But I also wear a lot of, jewelry and bracelets on my hand, and that can throw off a GPS unit. So, I've been doing a GPS course with Casey before, and he's just like, what the crap? What is wrong with your GPS or my compass? That's what it was. And we looked down and realized, it was my watch. A watch can make a major difference, just because of the mechanics of the watch compared to the mechanics of the compass and magnetism and everything.
Smartwatches especially, and then I know last weekend when we were doing the compass course, I think Amy, she had a smartwatch and she had some of those, copper magnetic gloves on, and it was just making her compass.
Yeah, and so that was the thing, because we're like, what in the world? And so I would hand the compass to Casey and be fine, and then I'd hold it in my hand, and he's like, what is going on? Because you could see it move, and sure enough, it was like my watch, and so that makes a big difference. Or even, what was it? I had it maybe around my neck, and it made a difference, because I had something else on that, and I don't remember what it is.
Synthetic gloves, static electricity and synthetic gloves will mess one up. A big watch, big ring, and just like you did, just right there, holding that compass up here where you can take a look, underwater bra.
There you go.
And
So-
I had to take mine off. I had to take mine off to make my compass work right.
But yeah, I mean, but you wouldn't think,
That's too much information right there, isn't it?
Right, so you wouldn't think that it would be a big deal, but, the smallest things like that, make a big difference sometimes. Train, weather, train can make a difference, big difference in a search. Injuries, weather, fitness, etc. If you feel like you're in shape for a search and you get out there in the field and you realize, this is too difficult for me, don't feel whatever.
That happens all the same, worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the debriefing or the hot wash or any of those that you do, it shouldn't be like a thing to get upset about. Some people get real defensive, but it's all about learning. Like, you should be looking for those things, not just because you're critical, but because that you will learn more from the searches you've done and the mistakes you've made. It always cracks me up whenever you see a team that no matter what, they come back and everybody's patting everybody on the back and like, good job, we did a great job, it was wonderful, everything's perfect. When really you've got some opportunities to learn there, because we're human and there's gonna be things that did not go
Yeah, and
off.
there's some things that can be overwhelming. So, how I mentioned earlier, if you are back up for a canine and you're running that GPS and you're running that radio, and but you're having to make sure that their safety, they're safe while they're making sure their dog is safe. And sometimes that can just be too much for somebody, and that is okay. Like, you'll know for next time, that is not the job that I need to do. And, or running radios. I mean, when I first started, and Stan was training me on how to run comms, it can be overwhelming because the radio traffic can be a lot all at once, and you have to tell somebody to hold on and go back to this person and write down this, and because you're writing down everything all at the same time. And so if you ever feel overwhelmed, don't be afraid to tell somebody that in the debriefing or later on after the fact, because the comfort of the searchers is also very important too, and the mental capacity and physical capacity and all that. So
If you can't openly address that stuff and just be like totally cool with it, you'll make the same mistakes over and over again. The team will do the same exact thing over and over again. It should really be like, you want it to be an open, easy, not attacking or not anything, but like just honestly, like, this did not go well. This was
Yeah.
a complete.
And that's where 7 comes in: suggestions, recommendations, and ideas for further activity in this area search. And so we should be able to give those recommendations and suggestions, but as a command staff and as leadership, or even as a fellow searcher, you have to be willing and open-minded to receive that constructive criticism sometimes, because that's where those learning opportunities come.
Can't get mad.
You cannot get mad. That can't get mad is a model that we have. Debriefing should be done in writing. A lot of times the initial debriefing is just verbal, but then whenever we meet at our monthly meetings, that's where that writing comes into play. So sometimes the debriefing though, I will say, depending on the nature of the search, Davis County, or the emergency management personnel may ask us for who, what, when, where, why, and how, and they will want, all of those questions answered by the individual searchers in the sense of if it's a criminal case, or if it is, when we went down to Dawson Spring, different things where they might ask, specifically for those questions to be answered, and so whoever reported to that search,
What makes that flow well when they ask that? Your documentation. Yeah, writing down everything that you do, everything you see.
If you don't write it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, so when you get back in there, like Katie said, and they're wanting to know all this, you got it.
There'll be downtimes on any search too, where you're taking a moment or something's going on. That's a great time to catch up on stuff, because there will be stuff you flat forget.
Trained anecdotal notes, word by word, not with preschool, so I've taken a lot of anecdotal training.
that's where 9 comes in, suggest an open-ended questionnaire for personnel coming out of the field. Debriefing should be conducted one team at a time. Usually that happens, as our teams return back and need to deploy back out. A lot of times that's what, we do is, hey, how did that go? What worked, what didn't work? All right, let's move you to a different section or a different grid and, send you on that way, so. Proper debriefing, procedures provide incident command with the tools they need to make proper planning decisions for the next shift in the search incident. That's more so for a large, search where there's gonna be multiple operational periods, but really, if you insert the next search in the, for a search incident. So, you're always wanting to improve and always wanting to make the next search better, always wanting to better yourselves. And, that can be a learning process, and, you just need to be open-minded to constructive criticism and learning from those mistakes, because, and sometimes, communications are always gonna fail. It's literally, every incident is, like, communications, top of the, areas for improvement, and literally every time it's communications, but it's just because of the nature of it, whether it's cell phones, radio, GPS, any of it, and so, but yeah, so it's a learning opportunity, and, that is the whole meat and potatoes of debriefing, is what can we do to make ourselves better for next time, so.
I feel like communication breaks down, like, so I work at Wendell Foster, and I feel like a large percentage of times that there's issues between departments, between people, that I'm sitting there trying to navigate